Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Monday, it's noon Eastern. That must mean it is the AT Town Hall. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a nice weekend. Hopefully it was nice around your area. In New Jersey here, we had a dreary, rainy, miserable Sunday, but we had a really nice Saturday. So I actually got outside and did some yard work, which was nice. So I'm glad everybody's here. Got a nice sized group with us today. As in past couple weeks, I think I have one question to start conversation, and the rest can just roll as we see. And then we'll fill our time, I'm sure. I'm not worried about it. That's me. So the EdTech of New Jersey is hosting these town halls. We are the New Jersey Assistive Technology Act project, and we're happy to do this for the community and share some ideas and strategies and expertise of the people on the call. So thank you for being here. There's people who could be on the panel, who might be here, who might not be. I haven't scrolled through the whole chat box yet. Some of them are here. Elisa's here, Kelly's here. I think that's it. So we'll talk about everybody else on that slide today. They suddenly just get very busy on other work they have to do, those other people. Don't forget about the chat. If you want to just drop your question there, you're going to get a sense real fast if you've never been here. We are a very loose group. So throw your video on, throw your microphone on, and just dive in a spot where nobody else is speaking. We're all game for that here. We do have a couple resources to share. We have a crowdsourced resource document that people have been adding to pretty consistently now. Which is at bit.ly/remote access for all. And that has some great resources in it. If you find a link to something that you want to drop there, please feel free. It is an open Google Doc that everybody can edit. We have the new AT Chat website that we're also equally excited about. And if you have something you'd like to see added to that, we have our webmasters on right now with us who can webmastery something together. That's right. Web mastery. Let's think about that. Web mastery, that could be there too. And I added this slide is new this week. I'm really excited. I do a grant, in addition to the other work, I do some of the other work. So multiple areas of work that I'm doing. One of them is with the New Hampshire Department of Education. And every year we do an AT Expo. We do it in the spring. And typically that is a live event for the people that are in New Hampshire can come and visit. Well, that's not going to happen this year as a live event. So now it's become a virtual event. And the nice thing about a virtual event is we can open it up to everybody. So it will be on May 20th, and it's going to go from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. And it's kind of broken up into little chunks. There is a schedule. It's not totally done yet. So I debate on sharing it right yet, but just give you the general sense of what the day will look like. It's broken up into 25-minute chunks across multiple tracks. We're going to have presentations from AT practitioners. We're going to have 25-minute like conversations, what I would call EdCamp style, where we have a facilitator to keep the conversation going, but there's really no set presentation. It's just a conversation about certain topics. And then we'll also have 2 tracks of vendor sessions. So they'll also get 25-minute sessions. The whole event is free. And we'll all be across whatever, Zoom or Google Meet or Teams. It might be a mix of all those. But the link is right there on the slide, bit.ly/ATExpo520. We'll get you to the Eventbrite page and we'll let you sign up for the free event. And then we can keep you in the loop as we pull this together more. So hopefully you can join us for a little or a lot of that. But another opportunity, Bruce and I were just talking before we started the recording, about this idea of having this nice time, in theory, for us to learn a lot of things. And I say in theory because I try that every day, and it doesn't always work, but once in a while, I get a chance to dig into something. I know the other day I was able to carve some time out of some other Zoom meetings to actually go to the Makers Making Change, had a really great video on Friday afternoon about creating low-cost AT devices for consumers, and that was really great. So that was a fun one. So I did get a chance to learn something last week, which was nice. But hopefully you'll be able to join us for the Expo. All right, so we'll just chat. We always start with these questions because I like these questions. And And so anybody have a positive thing that happened last week to you since we've seen each other last? A story of a good experience with a tech integration, with a team, with a student, with another educator, just something good. Or a quick tip for technology success. So I leave it to you guys. Someone else talk.
Mike,
go ahead.
I'll mention about with the speech therapist. So I did a PD for our speech therapist, and I worked for 2 different districts, and I did a PD for one of the districts on Google Hangouts with an emphasis on the type of skills they would need to work with students. But I showed them how to use Reflector to put their iPad screen in the Meet and share the screen for situations like they're working with a kid with an AAC app and they want to be able to model, and it shows the depression of the keys when you're using it. It's also a good way, I've used it to try to explain to parents how to turn on guided access, because it's a lot easier to show them what I'm doing on the screen than send them a handout or even sometimes a video, because I can react in real time.
Yeah, I like that idea of it showing the presses too, because sometimes that gets lost in these videos or clips that we send people. It's just magically some other box just appears out of nowhere. And they have that moment of what the heck just happened. So yeah, Reflector. And I said to Bruce again, before we started, we were just chatting, and I said, I don't know why I fought Reflector for so long. For a $15 tool that I don't have to subscribe to, I just get it. I don't know why I didn't get it before that, but it is super powerful. And what's nice about Reflector, what I've liked with the updates and even the newest one, is not only can I stream my iOS device to my computer, but I can stream my Chromebook to my PC. So the other day I was doing a training for a school district, and I was on my PC. When I do my Zoom things, I do it on my PC. And I was working with a student who needed to see the accessibility features of his Chromebook. So I was able to stream my Chromebook to my PC and play that in the window, so he could see the actual work on the Chromebook, which was nice. But cool. Thank you. Oh, and then Elisa put that in the chat to go to check out the Reflector website. And like I said, it's $15. You can't beat that. Thank you, Bruce. Anybody else? Something good from last week?
Well, Kim Berry from Oklahoma AbleTech and I had a 1 hour, they've started doing Q&As, and we did one on Bookshare. And Excellent. We had lots of really great interest in the Bookshare, which was really great because we don't use it enough here in Oklahoma. Yeah. But I loved, the teachers really seemed to like the one-pagers for not only the educators, but for the parents as well, which is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Did, was there a big focus in their questions that they had about Bookshare? Like, what was some of the big themes of their conversation?
I mean, honestly, we didn't have a whole lot of questions from people because we only ended up having about 30 minutes by the time we do the initial questions and the end questions. One of the ones that was most interesting was from the EL students. Was there a set of books for Spanish or Russian or something like that? And really quickly, I just got on the advanced and hit Russian, and all of these titles were able to be seen and everything. The other thing we talked about is if it wasn't available, take it into Microsoft, turn Immersive Reader on, and they're going to actually have the Microsoft person the next couple of weeks sharing some of the Microsoft tools. So hopefully that will be something that they can use too.
Yeah, that's awesome. You think about that idea, one of those little known features of Bookshare, you download your books into Microsoft Word, and then you use the tools in that to do any of your modification of how it looks. Yeah, and to share it with you. That's awesome. Thank you, Tiffany. Awesome. Somebody else?
Oh, and if no one did, VoiceStream Reader's having an at-home sale.
I just
for
saw
iOS.
that.
It has the scanner and the reader for $9.99.
Yeah, you can't beat that if you're looking to spend some money. So what have we learned so far today? You can buy Reflector for $15. Alyssa's like, oh, great. Here we go, spending more money. $15 for Reflector, and then the pack for VoiceStream. I don't know, did that say how long it was going to be that way?
They didn't say how long it was going to be. And the other thing I was going to say is if you're in a school, check. Normally they honor the 50% buying in bulk purchase. So you may be able to buy it for less than $5 per your student, maybe.
Even better.
I don't know if that's really working, if they have that set up in that side of the educator world or not.
Yeah, something to ask though. And Brute said it just says limited time. Okay, so we'll have to find that out. Yeah, and somebody else mentioned in the chat, Dolphin Easy Reader, which is another one that I use a lot when I'm looking at Bookshare books because it's free. You do have to sign up for an account. It's a free account, but you have to sign up. But once you are, you can download the books. That one's nice again because it works on both platforms. And I'm a big fan of something that works in both platforms and looks kind of the same. So your experience is similar.
Yeah, and the one thing I really like about the scanner that the Voice Dream came up with is once it's downloaded, you don't have to have internet again. So I'm thinking of all these families that have low access internet at home.
Yeah.
Once they get it downloaded that one time, it will translate any of their packets that you're sending home.
Yeah, really great point. That's an excellent point. Thank you. And Hillary.
Yeah, and like Bruce said, you know, we kind of worked out a system because we want people to use it more, and it's very clear that between Bookshare and Learning Ally, we're not using it to its advantage, you know, to its full max potential. So I have a Google form that collects everything I would need for a Bookshare account. Bookshare requires a couple pieces of information more than Learning Ally, but then I use that Google form that means a parent could fill it out. You know, I had a 17-year-old student fill it out that said I wanted it, and I'm like, score, I will set you up. It's one of the things we have a couple of local Facebook groups that have started. Like one is Alachua County School Closure Resources. So it's parents and teachers and everybody all in one group, and I just dropped it in there, and that increased, you know. So once I had the system going, and then I set them up in their account, and I send out a PDF that's got their username and their password for both, and like a getting started link all in one place. We set it up like months ago or years ago for like a summer reading push, and I still use the same system. Like everything gets dropped in there. I have school level people at some schools that can add kids and do that, but not at every school. And so the Google form right now is the quickest way to get that information back. I feel like I use Google Forms for everything.
Google Forms for you playing along at home is free. So there you go. You're not spending any money on that. There you go.
Or
Okay.
you could use Microsoft Forms, whatever the
Yes.
equivalent is on whatever platform you have. But I feel like it's so much easier to put that out there, gather the information you need, and then not have to, the email back and forth part is what bothered me about the setup. It's like, oh crap, I forgot I needed whatever piece of information.
Right.
If I get it all in one place, then I can add them. Yeah, I'll be happy to share a copy of that form. It's super basic, but it captures a Bookshare asked, I think, for the birth date, and Learning Ally doesn't, or there's a couple pieces of information that are different. But yeah, I'll make a copy of the Google form and share it. I can put it up on, I'll tweet it out, but I can also put it up on the AT Chat website someplace.
Awesome. See that?
You know, anything I have, you can have.
Thank you for webmastering that right up onto the AT Chat website.
Nice.
Hey, Elisa, can I have that picture you have hanging up over your left shoulder? Would
The
you
one
mind
of
doing
me or the other one? Yeah,
It
sure.
doesn't
I'll
matter.
put it in the mail to you.
Thank
You don't really want the picture of me. That would be kind of weird.
I didn't realize she was offering up stuff out of her office. I'd pay more attention. What did she got back there? I'll look at that.
You know me, whatever. If I have it and somebody else needs it, I'm gonna give it to you.
Sure. That's a Bruce mentioned. You can opt out of the birth date requirement. That Bookshare has a form you can fill out. And Mickey mentioned the idea about finally feeling appreciated. Mickey, hold that thought. That is my one question for this week. So hold that thought. I haven't ignored you, but I was excited that I saw it because I think it's something we could kind of go into a conversation for. So thank you for putting that in there.
That's such a great comment. I will
It is a
share.
great- Do you want me to
Yeah,
go right to that question now?
No, I would like to share a success that I'm super excited about, really happy. I did a webinar, which I'm redoing tomorrow, on no tech teaching for primary grades. And I had a full house, and I had a parent who sent me an email late at night and sent me 2 pictures. And her kiddo is 10 years old. He has ADHD, ODD, and is full of anxiety. And so one of the tips I think we talked about it here, where you put paper behind a window and use it as a whiteboard so you can write. And so she did that and sent me pictures of her son was standing outside on the porch. And she said that he completed 2 pages of math and was later super excited about working on reading in a way that they're just going to put words all over the house. So I was so glad about that. That was a game changer for them, and I'm super excited about that.
That's really cool. A nice, simple, low-tech solution, right? Gotta love it.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. I'll share my positive from Friday. I've been dealing a lot with the couple districts I work with. I've been doing a lot with staff and working with them with open office hours and things like that, and trying to help them work through their issues they're having. But Friday was the first time I actually worked with a therapist and a student at the same time. And it's a student that I work with a lot when we're in school. And it was so energizing. All he had to do was, the first thing he did when I popped in late because I was on another meeting, and then dropped in late, of course, story of my life. And the first thing he said was, "Mr. Mike, I'm so glad you're here." And I thought, oh, like, this is great. And then he proceeded to show me all the things he remembered about how to use Snap and Read to work on his assignments. We had one little hiccup. That's why I was there, to help with the hiccup. But he walked me through everything. And at one point, he yelled out to his mom to come see Mr. Mike popped on the screen. And this is who taught me how to use this. And I hung it up and I said to my daughter, I said, all right, I think my week is good now. I think I feel pretty good. I got called Mr. Mike, which made me happy. And we actually saw something positive from before all this happened with remote that kind of stuck with him. And I was really excited about that. So that was my positive from the week. And that's kept me going all the way through.
That's wonderful. It does make a difference. Keeps you refueled. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it felt good. It definitely felt good. All right. So any other good things to share, or should we go to my one question?
I have one good thing.
Go ahead,
I was working with the speech and language pathologist in our school division, and we had our first meeting that we've had in 6 weeks, and some people were sharing ideas, and we always talk about modeling on a low tech, and one of the SLPs had shared that she figured out a way that she could take a screenshot of the low tech, and she made it the background on her computer, and then she shares her screen. And so people were asking for solutions, and I was just really proud of them for persisting and being resourceful and finding a way to do this. And some other people were talking about, oh, I sign in on my iPad, like they don't have Reflector app and they don't have other means. So they're, doing what they can, and they're figuring out some different ways. So I was just so proud of them for being resourceful and, persisting with some of the difficult technology bumps that they were going through. So they're figuring out ways, and they're sharing with each other. So that was really positive. So
I think that's
I'm happy
awesome
for them, because when I got on, they just were so stressed. Like nobody was sharing their, nobody was sharing their camera. Everybody was muted. Nobody was saying anything. I knew it was Friday afternoon. I knew everybody had a long week, but I was like, you guys, this is like our team, come on, we can share with each other. What's going on? Tell me. And some people were just kind of posting in the chat, and I was like, it's okay, you can get on. And so I said, look, my kids are, they were climbing on my lap. And so it kind of changed a little bit of the meeting, but I'm hoping to meet with them more regularly. Because I'm not the lead SLP, so I'm an assistive technology specialist, and the lead SLP usually leads the meetings. And for whatever reason, normally I'm at their meetings face to face, but with this, I don't know, I just have sort of missed the invite or whatever on this. And so it was good to see them and make the connection and hear some of the good things that they were doing. So
that is nice. And it's nice you didn't take it personal that you missed the invite.
No. I don't really need any more meetings than I already have, but
exactly.
I didn't take it personal.
That's great. Oh, that's great.
Hey, Mike, I was going to
Hey, Beth.
just share hi, everyone. I was just going to share one quick thing. People that might not have seen it last week. So we, Lesson Picks now, we've been showing for a little while how you can download any Lesson Picks activity as a PowerPoint, but now you can, the PowerPoint add-in for a Lesson Picks has been approved and is active. So I just posted in the chat, there's the video that Bill did with Tara Rull and Tally Kellerstein. I'll see if there's a shorter one because that's like 35 minutes, but it shows exactly how you can access the So you can access your images, your Lesson Picks images, if you're a Lesson Picks subscriber, right in your PowerPoint. You've been able to do the same thing with Word for a while, for a long time, but it's even more powerful with the way people are using PowerPoint for teletherapy. So just wanted to share that real quick with folks. That was exciting last week.
That is exciting. Thank you.
I want to add in something exciting. I watched, if you have not watched the Lesson Picks with Beth and Chris with their gaming, you have to. That's even a Saturday night show. If you just grab some popcorn and watch that. We were talking earlier about not having time to learn things. And I now remember, as soon as I saw Beth's face, watching that twice from beginning to end, laughing just as hard and learning so much. So if you have not seen that, Beth, you should put that link in the chat box.
I'll put it in. You're so sweet, Kelly.
It is incredible.
You beat me to it, Kelly. I was just about to say that.
We definitely need like a part 2 and 3. Like, I think it should be an ongoing series. Maybe you bring on other guest presenters to share games, and we need more of that in the world.
I agree. I agree.
Awesome stuff.
That was going to be my kind of highlight and tech tip, was watching Beth's webinar from last week. And I agree with you, Kelly. I was having drinks with my husband and had it up, and we were both laughing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is blowing my mind. So Beth putting in the AAC core board next to the Google Slides, I was like, this is a game changer, because we're using Google Meet. So it's hard to pull up so many different windows to be able to see your student, to see your core board. How are you sharing it? So that was like a perfect solution. And Beth and I have kind of gone back and forth with a few different ideas of like opening the PowerPoint into slides, so then you can share that with your student rather than screen sharing so they can interact. So that's been a big tech win for last week.
Awesome.
So thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
Beth, you got yourself a new career, you and Chris. What are you doing? Come on.
Seriously.
All right, put that link in there. We don't want to miss anybody.
We don't
want to make sure. We want to make sure nobody misses that. Everybody's got to get on that one.
There we go.
Awesome. Thank you. Games people play. Perfect. All right. Last call. Well,
So it's a positive story, but it's not from this week. It's something that's happening tomorrow night.
And you assume it's going to be good and positive.
I am positive it will be positive.
And share away.
So if you guys have done any work with any robotics teams, either locally or you've come to AT Maker Day, so like everything else in the world, they got their robotics team like competitions basically nixed across the board, across the country. So Bill Binko for AT Makers is going to host kind of a robotics team showcase. Most of them prepared what they call chairman's videos for the Chairman's Award about, here's all the work we're doing outside of robotics. Like, here's the stuff that doesn't involve the actual robot competition. So he has a number of teams that are coming on. He wanted to kind of try to give them a forum for sharing the work they're doing. And most of it is related to our kids or our adults with disabilities. So tomorrow night at 7:30, he's going to go Facebook Live, probably YouTube Live too. And let them just kind of showcase and share all the good stuff they've done as high school students trying to make a difference for us, kind of to try to help salvage some of the ick of losing their season. So if you want another feel good, tomorrow night at 7:30, and I'm sure he'll have it up so you can watch it as a replay as well.
Awesome. Very cool. Definitely check that out for sure. Those teams are amazing. The teams that participate in AT Maker Day and some, they're wow. The stuff they do is so fantastic. Cool. Thank you. All right, here we go. One question. This was my thought, because I'm starting to think of it too, of what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do this. So once we pass the world of triage mode, I don't know when we're going to escape that, but when we do, because I feel like every week I feel we get a little closer to escaping it. And so I feel like we're maybe, each of us might be in a little different spot in our area of when we're going to get out of that completely. But I think at some point, my positive nature says we're going to escape that. So with that said, going back to Mickey's question, how do we build on this newfound awareness of AT that people have all of a sudden? Now they've recognized it. We're not in the shadows anymore. We've busted out. Here we are. We're in your face. Well, you're always in your face and we're always loud, but now we're in your face and you want us there. So how do we do, what are you going to do? Have you started to think about that? What you personally might start to do to build on this moment as we start to cycle towards whatever normal looks like. And I'm going to say normal in the fall is what I'm going to say. I think I'm going to accept the fact that the spring is going to be kind of this. But when we start to roll back into the, you know, late summer into the fall, what does that look like for you? I've done it. I've stumped every single person.
No, you haven't. Come on.
No, I haven't. I know I haven't. I know you're just all processing for a minute. I'll tell you what I thought of as a quick start, and then we'll go from there. That'll give you a chance because it's my question, so I've obviously thought about it. So I've already talked to, and like I said, most of the work I do is with my AT Act and a lot of bigger kinds of projects across states with organizations, but I do have a couple districts that I work with hands-on in the schools with the teachers and the students. And I did approach one of the directors last week with this exact question of, now that, because this was also the director that said, now I get why AT is so important. So that made me start thinking about what I should do next. And it was nice. My contract for next year came, so that was always good too. So now I know I'll be there again next year. And I said to her, you know, a conversation of what we planned on doing. And we're going to take a lot of these things we're doing now in this remote learning moment, and we're going to bring that forward next year as kind of value added services to the AT department, which is really just me on a 1 day a week kind of thing. But opening up for more communication with parent. We've had 2 parent presentations this week at night. One really well attended. Really well, like 25 parents, which was great. And we talked about just kind of how they're doing with tech and what kind of help they need. We did some troubleshooting on Snap and Read because the district has Snap and Read across it. And then we had another one, not as well attended. So I think something about timing, and I don't know if you guys have found this. I think by 7 o'clock, I don't think a parent wants to talk about AT. I've learned that. So I don't think they want that. 4:30, yeah, right, they'll talk for a little bit. 7, not so much. But we're going to do a lot of that, a lot of deeper communication, working more with the para-educators, because we realized that we're missing an opportunity with this group who were not brought into a lot of the PD we had done with the teachers. So that's going to be a big push when we start back in the fall. But those are a couple things. I'm curious if anybody else has some thoughts.
Well, we've been talking, Mike, in our district about the importance of tech PD from an inclusive standpoint. And that's something I think that's been missing in general, where we're given tech PD, right? And each district's a little bit different on how they do PD because of contract negotiations, para negotiations. How does that look, sound, and feel, and all of that? And so those kind of presented as barriers, right? And then your PD from a district standpoint then gets eaten up by these other initiatives. And tech gets kind of swept under the rug, right? So we get like an hour in the summer to cover everything Google, and Hillary gets 30 minutes to talk about accessibility. And you know me, I'll take any time I can get, but it's not enough. And this has taught us that we've had all of this stuff here in place to do this. And you can't coulda, woulda, shoulda, but it would have been a whole lot of less dramatic and traumatic for people if we would have offered these opportunities as a forethought, not an afterthought. So our kind of guidance and things that I've been talking about with our department and in our tech department already knows that, but is to make this a priority for training, not just for staff, but to try and open it up for parents as well. And it's going to have to be layered because some are not going to be able to make something like this or in person. So recording it, being able to have it played. And so I'm thinking about how can I universally design my PD even more so that we can have these options, choices, and flexibility, but it's not always high tech stuff either. So like Kelly's webinar, that low tech is great. I'm sorry, I'm shamelessly plugging it, but it was amazing. And Chris and Beth's webinar games, I want to dust off my Mad Magazine game from the 80s and get that out because it's wonderful and it's so good for your brain. But I really think that opportunity to have really meaningful PD around tech, the tools, and how to use those strategies and supports as a forethought is going to be really important, not just for our learners with disabilities, but all learners who might go through an RTI process and not necessarily qualify for special education. But if we leverage some assistive technology with those particular students or changed formats of content, it might help remove those barriers. So I think it's getting people thinking creatively. I would love to keep that going too. The other aspect is this surge of creativity for teachers that's been lost with No Teacher Left Standing and box curricula. You can take the science of what we know works in learning and marry that with creativity. I really think doing that's going to be a huge step, because then we can teach our students to do that, and teaching our students to produce content that's accessible. I mean, that's a deeper thing, but those are the things that are on our mind, at least when we've been having these conversations.
You're right. And don't you think this idea of UDL, even without us saying UDL now, we can speak about it without ever mentioning the term UDL now, because people are more aware of the idea of options now. Mm-hmm. Options to engage and to represent and for the students to express what they know. Those are the routes we can now talk, because they've spent weeks now trying to figure out how to make do with what they have to accomplish in what's around for the students. So options have become right up at the forefront. It's that you want to write it on your glass window, like Kelly's example that we keep going back to. You want to put paper up and write it on your glass window and take a picture for me? Great, that counts. Well, why shouldn't that count come September?
That's the questions I've been telling people all the time, is in the choice of your learning too, where here's the goal. You choose how you present that knowledge to me. And I'm going to give you, 3 or 4 choices. And we do this all the time in special education, but to give kids choice, that's something I've heard that they're really drawing to, is that choice aspect. But that next step of that option is super important. And then even the flexibility of due dates and deadlines, and I taught my grad course in the middle of all of this. It started right in the middle. Thankfully, it was all online, so that wasn't an issue. But what the learners came back, because we just wrapped it up yesterday, was their feedback was clear about how important it was for them to have creative ownership of their learning as adults. And also, they finally understood some conditioning they had in higher ed, where I read the chapter, I write the paper, I'm done. But if there's no practical application to what you're doing, it doesn't mean anything. So they got to experience that even in the pandemic part. And the due date, I had to let certain things go. Grading, out the window, because that's such a barrier. So did you do it or not? Here's the goal. How did you do it? Here's a way to do it. Here's another way to do it. Find what works, connect it to your experience. And you know what? Blow my mind to give me 2 new resources that I don't know about. Do some research, because you're driving your thinking. It's so important.
Yeah, I'm doing that too. My grad class wraps up next week. So we have a class tonight, and then next week we finish. And I've been even more flexible than normal. Most times if someone said, well, how do you want this assignment? I would typically say, well, how do you want to give it to me?
That's what I do.
It was hard for them to wrap their brains around sometimes. And they would mention, well, could I record it? Sure. Could I take pictures? Okay. And they had said at one point, one of the women in my class said, will you ever say no to one of the choices I give you? And I said, no, probably not. I don't think I will. And they've had this flexibility now that they've had to do this full time. We were hybrid. So we were in class once in a while. We were on remote other times, but now we've been all remote. And it's been interesting. I'm excited. I wish I could share this with you guys. I'm going to ask if I can get their permission next week for our final exam, I'm definitely air quoting that, our final project, they have to go around their house and scrounge up some items and build a low-tech assistive tech tool and then share it in our last class. That's their final project. That's what they've been working on. And I'll ask them all if I'm able to record it and share it with people, because I'm excited to see what they come up with. But yeah, thinking about that flexibility and options.
So Mike,
yeah,
I think one of the things with this whole conversation around newfound awareness, and this may sound a little bit jaded, but I think because we live in our own bubble, we see it as people are more aware. I'm not sure that that's actually as true as we'd like it to see. I think it needs to be tied into the newfound awareness of issues around equity and the way technology is right now. So I think that large school districts, small school districts, people are dealing enormously, not mongoose school districts. That's what the small.
Well, work better to enunciate, and then we'll see.
All right. I got distracted by the closed captioning. I think that it is a huge issue right now, is this issue around equity and access to technology, and we need to wrap ourselves into that. It's part of equity issues, and that is UDL. And equity issues with distance learning right now are so I think we need to find a way to insert ourselves into the conversations that school districts' equity offices are having, and make sure that equity for individuals with disabilities is a part of that conversation, because they're having to focus on it now. It is going to this inequity is going to have a huge impact on. We don't have any testing now, right? Nobody's doing testing. Next year, we're going to see the effects of the inequities that have happened in school because of access to technology, due to socioeconomic, due to bandwidth availability and all of that. And we need to find a way to insert ourselves into that, so that this piece of the technology, of accessible technology in a different way, is not forgotten and is not put aside.
You're absolutely right, Beth.
Yeah,
you're so right, Beth. And it's that light that needed to be shed, because we've talked about this for eons, about the system is designed in a certain way. Well, now that light is really glaringly is being shed on that, and it needs to be, because it has to be. We have to do better. It has to shift. And I agree with you. We have to be part of that by supporting, our advocates that are doing work and being a good ally and accomplice to help shift that. So, sitting on, whether it's sitting on a committee or just doing the work we do, and make sure that those things continue to be brought to light with some actionable steps.
But I think, we've always talked about how AT has to make friends with IT. We need to go make friends with the people in the equity office now.
Yes, because they are also not really thinking about us. Very rarely when an equity conversation happens, is there a mention of students with disabilities? Very rarely. Once in a while, but not often. And that has to change. You're absolutely right. That might be a great path for us.
This is also a good, sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead.
This is also a good time to get, if you feel like you're being more heard now, is getting on the textbook committee. This is a time we can really start talking about accessibility. A lot of times when the textbooks are selected, there's not anyone who's on the committee that can understand accessibility and know what questions to ask the textbooks company, because if it's digital does not mean it's accessible. So there's certain questions that we need to ask as far as accessibility. And I love how Beth talks about AT and IT. That's a huge gap that I think up until now, a lot of decisions are made from IT who do not have an understanding of AT. So they're the ones making decisions whether if a student can use a certain extension or not, and it's blocked because there's not understanding of how it's using. So bridging that gap is so important. So let's not make them separate anymore. Start writing these into our policies and procedures when school starts back up. I know our conference coming, it's going to be in the fall. We are already like trying to think forward and having, that's the only thing that we charge for is our conference, which you probably all know. But now it's going to be buy one, bring your IT person for half off. So it's trying to keep those relationships built and connected, because that's where, you know, when you're in IT and you're working in school districts, that's such a separation, and it's constant conversation we have to have. Well, we're like making, you know, we're basically begging for a student to be able to use Read Write for Google, or, you know, Don Johnston Snap and Read, because they're blocked and there's really no understanding of how they're used. So if we can bridge those gaps, getting on the textbooks committee, figure out a way how we can not separate gen ed between special ed, and maybe start combining those to where we're not just having meetings here for gen ed, meetings here for special ed, we're all like collaboratively coming together, because that's the only way this is going to become, you know, sustainable and become deeper than just a pandemic surface level. We have to definitely bring it deeper in. And I just think that maybe those are some ways that we could do that.
Yeah. It becomes a culture shift is what it is. We're working towards this now. Now that we got a little opening, we're going to pry our way in, and we're going to try to change that culture somehow from within. Go ahead, Tiffany. I saw you were going to start.
Well, my question is, because I'm in rural Oklahoma, and I know Indiana has some rural issues with accessibility and stuff, because I saw some friends up there. But how many people are having problems with just being able to obtain access? I mean, there are whole swaths of Oklahoma. There is no access. You may be a parent, you may be a teacher, and you're having to go into town and sit at the Sonic to get your homework done. And even when we do have, because I mean, I'm outside Oklahoma City by 6 miles, and the only way I can get my internet is by radio tower. Imagine how stable that is. It's a very windy day today, and you guys are cutting in and out, and I have unstable, and I'm tied in with my Ethernet cable.
I'm there with you, Tiffany. I live outside of Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, and I have the worst internet. I mean, it is a huge struggle for me. I ran into the Verizon guy on the road the other day, and it may have made my year.
I literally ran into him, and that made you happy?
Yeah, yeah.
AT&T won't even update my phone lines anymore. We've had to go to online phones because they refused to update and rerun the wire line, and the wire line had been eaten by the gophers so many times that I don't even have a landline any longer.
It is an issue, and it's an issue in very rural areas like Oklahoma, and it's an issue that people don't realize actually exists even in suburban areas where they just won't come out and run the line down. I mean, they would have run it down for us if we paid $8,000 for it. I mean, you know, previously. So it is a big issue, and I think that's part of that whole equity issue that we're talking about. With now, school districts and businesses and government are being faced with, there's still a digital divide, and it is not just a digital divide that is socioeconomic. It's also geographic, but that digital divide is real, and it impacts the ease and ability to do this kind of thing, you know, that we're talking, you know, successfully. I mean, my husband and I are like negotiating over the Wi-Fi hotspot. No, I need it. No, you need it, you know.
The Wi-Fi hotspots won't even work at my house.
Yeah.
My cell tower does not work worth a darn on most days. I mean, it's really how it is. I mean, one of the school districts that I work with, it's actually a private school that I work with. It's only about 10 miles from my house. Everyone laughs that when you go out to Ishans, you have to wait until you've come back from being in Okarche to share your pictures, because there is no cell service. Yeah. I mean, and so, I mean, it's like, how do you expect people to provide online? And that's one of the things I keep on looking at. What can the kids take from here, even if they had to come and download for 5 minutes, what can they go back and do with? So that's why the voice stream scanner is so much better for me than the Office Lens one, because they can't use it at home because they don't have the stable internet access.
Right.
That's why everybody has to sign up for Kelly's session tomorrow on no tech, low tech stuff. So
Yeah, that's where I think we're going to have to pivot. Is it may not be online at every moment, but what can we do to have temporary quick downloads and then be able to go back and work for a week or work for 2 days?
Yeah.
Type of thing.
And I think the concern with this whole idea is we're all living in this experience now to different extents, obviously, wherever we are. My fear about this idea of this digital divide and lack of access is that once school starts up again, people will have the attitude like, well, we're past that. We don't have to worry about that. And I don't want to see that get kind of swept to the side, along with this newfound respect for options and providing support the way people want it and giving people choice in their learning experience. My fear is, how do we keep all this stuff from being just swept off like, oh, we're back in September, so let's just start the same way we did last year. I think that's my concern.
Yeah.
It's my little rain cloud I just threw over everything. But that's where I'm starting to think of how can we do this and make sure that the positive steps we've taken in this, and that's strange to hear in this whole time of this pandemic, the positive steps. But I think some of these things have been positive for the students we work with. How do we make sure that then translates to support, quite honestly, for everybody as we go forward, including the students we work with? Because I've heard from other people, there's supports that we would think typically are AT or UDL supports for only a certain group of students that I hear other students thriving with right now in this whole experience. So a parent said to me the other night, I wish I could never send my child back to school because they are doing so much better right now.
Well, I was playing with Jamboard just for fun, and then my nephew and my son came in, and now they're playing Hangman. I mean, wow, I've actually got the two of them to work on spelling words using Hangman. That would never have happened, without having discussions about it.
Little tips and tricks, and I think the other discussion that we're having now is thinking about, okay, so for our students with hospital homebound needs, we think we're going to have more of those going into next fall of families who, because of whatever reason, are going to want or need, or their doctors are going to advise they don't come back to school. This definitely is going to kind of shift our hospital homebound teachers' provision of services and therapies and all of that in a way that we haven't had before. So we're having more of those discussions in terms of planning. And my as we escape triage mode kind of thinking is, okay, how do I help transition kids back into a school environment and document the AT that they've been using successfully at home, which might be slightly different than what is on their current IEP. At this point, we're going for what tool do you need, and the environment changed. So of course the tool might change.
Right.
So trying to kind of think, okay, I had a transition, I don't know, summary of performance, I don't even know what you want to call it, plan, like here's everything you need to know about this kid that I've used for like a 5th grade to middle school transition. But now I think I've got to adapt that for a like return from remote, remote learning, distance learning kind of supports. And I'm not sure what that looks like because I'm still, whatever phase this is, I'm not past triage yet.
Yeah, and I don't think we are, quite honestly, a lot of us. But I think at some point it helps to start thinking this too shall pass and we will move to the next phase. And are we going to be ready for that phase? Every once in a while, I get just another person I'm talking to who asks me a question that is clearly not a reaction to something that's happening in that moment, but is a little forward thinking. And I want to latch on to that and say, ooh, they're thinking about what this looks like as we go forward. And I don't want to miss those opportunities because I'm feeling they're probably few and far between without being forceful about it and kind of like, hey, wouldn't it be great? And just kind of kicking my way in and say, this is what we should do. No, when those little moments when someone says it, I want to kind of be ready with some thought about what that looks like.
Hopefully that when the next phase comes, whatever that looks like, it comes with the strong voice of the students. So we talked when we gave Chris that job a few weeks ago about finding the student's voice. I would just love, and I'm not saying it can't happen, but it would just be wonderful if every single school just sent a survey or something to get student voice and ask them what is working for you now what's working for you now with remote learning that wasn't working for you in class, and then taking all of that data and actually making those changes, because it would be really powerful. It's, student
I don't think I'm going to get that data big picture, but I am asking, we have a lot of OTs that their goals for the kids normally are executive functioning type goals, especially middle and high. Are you organized? Do you know how to access your platforms? So things have kind of shifted a little bit in this time, but I'm having them ask, how are things going? What's working? To try to at least capture some small pocket microcosm of that data. And it's, our kids are way more insightful than people give them credit for.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
And I think, maybe we can get that on the big picture from Chris, although I noticed he hasn't come back since we gave him that assignment.
Yeah, again, we haven't really shown him that he's going to get more work by not being here. So I think we need to change that. Have him recognize that being here is key to not get any other work.
So I think that big picture data is important, but I think then thinking about who are the providers that are with that kiddo right now, day to day, that could gather it somewhat informally. Because I think, if I were to ask my district, can we send a survey to they would be like, no, we're not sending another thing to the parent right now that they have to do, the student that they have to do. So I think being able to gather it the ways that I can, which I think is our speech OT and PT that are providing that on a consistent basis, they're seeing kids weekly, I know. Might be the only way I can get that.
Can we make it an assignment for the English class? Talk to those English speakers and make it an assignment, because my son's English assignments right now are less than fascinating, let's just say. Maybe it could be, the checkout for the semester. If you complete this, then you get an extra bonus point.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that I did with a couple of kids that I was doing a group with, oh gosh, there's a book and I'm going to forget the name of it. It's like If I Were to Build a School. I'm trying to think of the actual name of it. I'll have to look it up. But
if I had a school or if I ran a school, and it's
something
all imaginary with
exactly. And I was like, okay, so we read the book, and it was through distance learning. We read the book and we talked about what's different now about school and what would they like to keep doing after we go back to whatever school is. So I tried to kind of gather it that way. And even those kids were second, third graders, had some really great, I don't like sitting in one place. I don't like, really great age appropriate insights about things that I think could be very well carried over to another, a return to school setting.
Yeah, I had my son make videos for, Chris's podcast, and it was just interesting. Again, I only have the one perspective, but he was saying, I said, okay, well, it's really hard to get a video all at one time. He was like, well, I want to show a lot of different things. So he was climbing a tree, and he's like, you can climb a tree. Then he's on the swing, and he's like, you can be on the swing. And he goes, and you also learn to, I don't know, not step on your brother's head or something. And I was like, oh, okay, these are all really good things, but no teacher would ever think climbing a tree, being on a swing, and learning social skills about how to treat your brother are those are not the curriculum, or those are not the typical way of doing things. And that was just what he said. Every single thing he said was what doesn't happen in a typical classroom. And I just thought that was really interesting, and we're lucky enough to have a yard that he can climb a tree and have a swing and, those kind of things. But yeah, I do agree that the student voice needs to be highlighted, and it would be great if there was some way where we could capture that more systematically.
Yeah. Hillary, jump in and make your request known verbally.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Any kind of connects. I had started before all of us hit a podcast that was meant for professional development for our staff called At the Heart, which are stories about assistive and inclusive technology from the user. So I'm interviewing students or AT users, whether it's K-12, higher ed, adult. I don't really have a preference. I just think the stories are important and they need to be heard. So it's now on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and on Buzzsprout. But there'll be another episode coming up soon. But if anybody has someone in mind that they think would be a great interview, or they want to share their story and you have parental permission if they're under 18, I would love to interview them. They're no more than 15 minutes, so it's short, it's sweet, and to the point. But I think it would have a good connection with what Chris is trying to do, because the questions too are geared towards what's happening currently and how that helps in any environment. So there is work around that that's been happening. The most recent interview I did, we talked about the distance learning and what was challenging and what was working well. And one of it was just organizing email because it hadn't been taught, because we didn't use it, because, you know, so different things are coming out, but for the most part, it's positive. So if anybody has a user in mind, please send them my way. I would love to share their story and support all of the work that everybody's doing here and support them as an empowered learner. So that would be cool.
Awesome. And it is great. It's so great to hear users talking about their experiences. So powerful. So thank you, Hillary, for the plug. All right, guys, we got 3 minutes before we wrap up. I always want to be respectful of your time. It's not because I have to run to another meeting. That would be crazy. No, I have to run to another meeting too. But anything else? Any last kind of final words before we wrap up for the week?
Does anybody already have a nice, beautiful how to help transition assistive technology document that you want to share? Something that summarizes what they're using and that I could adapt for distance learning?
I think Chris Bugaj was going to make one for us. So
write that down.
We'll just get right on him. Yeah.
Remind him on Twitter.
Give him no context either. Just say, Chris, we're waiting for that document you're drafting. And then just have him come back. Listen, if you start it and you open it up to people, I will contribute.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
That's a deal. I'm up for that.
I can absolutely do that. Hillary, I'm looking for the podcast right now on Google Podcasts, and my I found it. Okay, I was going to find it, but
I had to switch out of my school account because they blocked Google Podcasts. So I was like, what? Where is it? And then I switched accounts and went, oh, there it is. Hooray.
Yeah, I will add it. It is one of my small sadnesses in the way that we switched to distance learning is I don't have as much car time right now. So we don't have as much podcast time right now.
Yes.
So I'm limited to walking the dog podcast time, and that's just not as long as I drive.
Yeah. How many of us miss bebopping?
just some kind of clear my head. I'm like so behind too, Sarah. I've been like, my poor dog's like, I don't really want to walk anymore. I'm like, too bad. More podcasts to listen to.
Let's go for another walk. It sounds great.
I think starting next Monday when we start the meeting, we should all pretend we're driving. We should have a background, our scene that we're normally at. We're all just
all right, I'm going to do
lip
that.
syncing. Yeah.
That's
little car
good.
karaoke.
All right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to work on that. Even though I have all these great other pictures I've already downloaded for my background, I'm going to do that.
Kelly, what's PATINS ICAM chat this week? What are we talking about?
So tomorrow, let's see, today's Monday. Tomorrow it is AAC, Remote Learning, No Mode of Communication.
Cool. Awesome. AT chat, I have no idea what our topic will be yet this week. So if someone's interested.
I wasn't going to ask.
That's okay.
That would probably be the answer.
I'm comfortable saying we don't know yet. It's only Monday. We got 2 whole days. We'll figure that out. But if you have an idea, you're welcome to chime in with an idea. We're taking. All right, guys. It's 1 o'clock. We did it again. It was a pleasure seeing all of you one more time. It makes me feel very happy as I go into my week. So thank you. And be well. And I'll see you whenever I see you. If not before, I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See ya.